and welcome to the Business of Property podcast. I'm Stuart.
And I'm Simon.
And we've been finding, buying and growing income from property for over 20 years, and we talk every week about the reality of running our property businesses. As always, if you're getting any value from the show, please do leave us at the very least a rating. And if you're feeling really kind, please do leave us a review. And this week, we are very pleased to be also introducing a third guest, who is Luke Blakemore to the show, who's a property investor, quantity surveyor, and he's worked his way up to developments. Luke, that's a very brief introduction to yourself, but do you want to just introduce yourself in a couple of sentences to the Business of Property audience?
Yeah, hello. So basically, I've been building property for about three and a half years now. Started with some training and then built a portfolio up in Liverpool, which I'll go into in a bit later, but with myself and my partner. And we've now grown into quite a nice portfolio, and we're looking at, we're currently doing some developments in the southeast.
Fantastic. And that's a really good quick introduction, and it makes it even more interesting than what we're going to talk about. And the reason we've invited Luke onto the show is because he's a property investor, and he's just said he only started 3.5 years ago, has a portfolio, and is already moving on to much bigger developments in property investing space. And we thought that would be really interesting to bring it to you, our listeners, to see how that's actually happened, because we like to focus on how people are growing and scaling property businesses. And that's why, Luke, we thought it would be really good to bring you. So if you could really just give us a little overview of how you were able to create that portfolio in Liverpool and fund that as your base for starting your property business, that would be really good.
Yeah, so we did the training, and then how it worked is because we were first-time buyers, first-time landlords. We was renting at the time, so we needed quite a lower cost entry. So we kind of used that as our initial start when we were doing the area research. Obviously, our first property we bought in Liverpool was a 3-bed buy-to-let for £86,000. And we always knew we were going to use investors' money. So that was kind of what we decided to do, because, well, effectively I had to borrow 25,000, 30,000 for the first one, compared to if I did it where I live, that wouldn't even cover the deposit. So that was kind of the basis of our decision to go up there. It's a 4-hour drive away, so it definitely took its toll to begin with. But yeah, that's kind of how we structured it to begin with, to go up there, try and, start small and then scale, using sort of, all other people's money, recycling it, and keep moving on. So that's how we did get going to begin with.
Just on a practical level, how did you find that distance?
Sorry, the actual property.
No, as in the fact that it was so far away that you were investing.
It was tough, especially to begin with, because 4.5 hours there, 4.5 hours back, and that's without traffic. You could do 10 viewings in a day and walk away with nothing. It's soul destroying. But you make it work, and then what it made us do, it made us build a team, and a good team that we trusted, because we needed to rely on our team to be able to, manage the properties at a distance. So I think that was kind of the best part about it, really, is trying to find people that we trust. Don't get me wrong, I can tell you some horror stories, but it took a while to get there, and we did get there, and it worked really well in the end. But to begin with, it was tough. It really was tough, but it worked well in the end.
Yeah, and as people know on this podcast, my portfolio is also 4 hours away, but in the southwest, different direction. The first question I've got is around, you said we always knew we were going to have to use other people's money, which is really interesting. How has that played out in your portfolio in terms of, okay, so you can tell us, in terms of, are they joint venture partnerships, and also within the portfolio, have you had to retain those investor funds, and are they joint ventures, are they interest only deals? How did you set that up?
So to begin with, the first one we did was just pure investors' money on a fixed term interest. About 12. We always try and secure it on 12 months, but there has been cases where it's shorter. If we need a bit of money for a few months, and we know we're remortgaging, but we structured it to begin with that it was going to be just using investors' money. We didn't really want to do any JVs at the time. We wanted to just do it right, do it ourselves. And we kind of made sure we had some facilities on, because basically we as I told you to begin with, it was first-time buyers, first-time landlords. We spent quite a lot of money to do the actual training that we did. So we was already in a position where we had no money, basically. We were only 21 at the time. But we made sure we had a bit of facility on credit cards if we needed to if, you know, worst comes to worst, we could pay some people back with that. So we kind of had that in our back burner. But so to start with, we did that. As I said, I think it was £22,500 to get the first one over the line. And then we did use some credit cards towards the build, the refurb cost, because we tried to do a bit of it ourselves. And lo and behold, we bought our first one in February 2020. So a month later, COVID, lockdown. So that was a struggle. But since then, we have done JVs. So
Luke, before you go on to that, so you just to be clear, so you needed £22,500 from an investor. Is that what we're saying for the first one?
For the deposit, yeah.
Right. So, and you've said 12-month fixed term, and I think this is really interesting because not a lot of people get into this. So, essentially, when you were doing your maths, your deal analyzers, as we say in the property world, you essentially had to find a property that you were going to return £22,500 on in a 12-month period. Is that essentially right?
Yeah, so the way we've always structured it and looked at it is we always look at the return on cash invested once you refinance. So if I can go and find a buy-to-let or any deal really, more of a retained deal rather than a flip or a sale. So if I always work on the basis of minimum 20%, and I know that's quite hard, especially as the market kind of changed and, you know, prices went up, but that was always the basis, is trying to work on 20%. Because if I'm paying someone 8 to 10%, I know that I'm still getting 10% returns. And if anything, that's infinite return because it's not my money. I know they've put time into it, so that's a different calculation. But effectively, yes. So you want to look for, it's twofold really. You want to make sure that the money at the end of the deal from the cash flow can still pay the interest to the investor if there's money retained within the deal after the 12 months, as well as trying to put as much equity out on refinance to pay them back. So that's how we've always structured it like that.
Yeah, and I do likewise. So very, very similar. It just happens that I took some money from an investor several years ago, and we're still working that one through at the moment. But actually, you know, you've talked about it being quite obviously negative buying in February 2020, and hindsight is a beautiful thing. But we know actually that was probably a good time to buy in terms of overall capital appreciation.
Yeah, it was. We actually did really well at that deal. I think all in all, we spent, I think it's about, cost all in was about 109,000. We sold it for 120. We ended up selling it. We kept it for a year, rented it out, and then we decided to sell it and, you know, pay the investors back and move on to the next one. So, and it was quite nice. It was a nice thing because we saw that it worked as well. So it gave us that kind of confidence, you know, because it took a year. We offered on it in July 2019, completed in February 2020. Had to go through so many loopholes because we were first-time buyers, first-time landlords. And then because of lockdown, it took us until August to get the refurb done. And it was only a cosmetic refurb. It was nothing crazy. So all in all, it was a year in the deal. So we knew that it does take long, but at the same time, it gave us the confidence. And we went up there, we slept on the floor. You know, we got stuck in, and it was a really nice experience. So, it's good. It was a good one.
Excellent. And what the byproducts as well of doing what you've done and for it working out, and of course it doesn't always work out, but what you've also done is you develop that trust in your investors for that first year that, okay, these guys, they can do it. Because I've worked with a few investors now, and to say money is not the most important thing isn't quite right, but they're looking for people they can trust.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's worked its way through for me, just to share that, because again, we've hit quite a few bumps in the road, as we've talked about often in this podcast, because I bought a flip 4 years ago. It was supposed to be a 6-month project, borrowed money for that period. I still haven't paid that investor back, and it was 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago. But because we developed trust with that investor, we've been able to talk it through. So just talk to us about, okay, after that one, then what did you do?
So after that one, I think as we were coming to the end of that one, going through the remortgage, we decided to let's look for another one. And funny enough, a 2-bed came up down the same end of the road, turn left. And we got it at such a good price. It was bear in mind we bought the 3-bed for 86,000. We just had it we was going through the remortgage, and I think it revalued at 115, 120. Obviously, we decided to sell it in the end, but we found another one down the road for 2-bed, 65,000, and the market has gone up already since then. And we thought, you know what, this is even better. This one. And that's where the horror story comes in. We used a builder that a letting agent recommended. If anyone wants to talk about it privately, I will, because I'm not going to name anyone. But it was horrible. I had to get the police round to get him out of my house. It was a horror story. So that one didn't go to plan. We spent well over what we should have done to get it to where it was. So we didn't lose money.
It goes without saying, doesn't it? If you have to get the police involved, it generally didn't go well.
It did not go well. Honestly, it was so bad. But you learn from it, and you know what? I'll take every failure, and you just learn from it and you grow from it, and it was an experience, that's for sure. Some sleepless nights, but it was an experience.
I've got to say, I do love that, Luke, because not everybody feels like that. And of course, we want to avoid these things, but I just love how you framed that, because things are going to happen. Things are going to happen. When we're trying to build things and grow things, things are going to go wrong. So we shouldn't be fearful of that. So I just wanted to underline that, because I think that's a really good way of reframing it.
Yeah, and it was still a time when like lockdowns were still going on, and it was a bit, you didn't know what was happening with the country, and getting up there was difficult around certain, like work and things like that. So you kind of put a bit of too much trust in him. So I think that was another mistake. And yeah. But, as I say, you learn from it. So, yeah, since then, so we did that one, got it over the line. But then, just going back to what you said, you've still got investors from day one. I mean, we've got investors who just kept rolling over, and I've still got them today. And you'd be surprised how much they increase their money once you get the trust. I think one started off with 2,000. I've got £25,000 of his now, plus he's a JV on a project. So it just grows. But yeah, and then that's when we started to go into more of a JV partnerships. That's that second year. We had a good friend of mine who I knew through work. He invested in the first one, just a couple of grand to dip his toes in and see what it was all about. Obviously paid it back on time. He loved it, and he thought, I kind of want a piece of this. And we sat down, and he wanted to be completely hands off. I said, that works for me, because I want to try and create this business and manage the business, because that's what I want to do. So he said, okay, I'll put the money in. So then he, cash flowed the business for quite a while, and we've built up a sizable portfolio. I think that year, so what year we're in now, 2021, I think we bought 4 or 5 properties in that year. And then a couple of other JVs came on board as well. So but then we decided to start really only doing one-off JVs. So we just do like flips or capital projects. And I've just grown the business with that first JV who I mentioned, and we're now in a serious partnership. So,
with that many purchases a year, I mean that's a lot.
I mean, a single purchase. We went a bit crazy. We did go a bit crazy, and it was good. It was a good ride. It was really good. Yeah.
How much time were you spending up there and on site and things to be able to just find that many properties? Never mind then actually manage them through the process.
So, if I'm being honest, the first 2 we found ourselves just using the traditional methods, Rightmove, Zoopla, and then I became a bit of a pest too. So basically, we had, going back to the first property, we were umming and ahhing whether to rent it out or sell it. So we had the letting agent come round, and then she put us in touch with an estate agent, and it was the owner of the estate agents who actually come round. That's quite rare, really. So he come round, and he gave me his business card. I think it's the biggest mistake he probably could have done. And then I just was a pest, and I was just hounding him for deals, and then eventually I got put in touch with his kind of off-market head of operations, like that side of things, who deals with the investors. So then we started having the deals, come through them, and it was just a bit easier because we were working obviously remotely and working 5 days a week. So actually finding the deals, we didn't put as much time in after that. because they were coming, and then we kind of just chose what ones we wanted to go with, which worked really well for us. And then, we were going up there sort of at least once a month, every couple of weeks to start with. And then, as I said, I think before we started this recording, I sort of built the team up there. So we had the builder, and we kind of had the letting agent. At one point, it was, there were a couple of houses I didn't even see before we offered on them, because we built the trust. And they turned out to be quite good projects, actually. But yeah, that's kind of how we did it in such a quick amount of time.
Yeah. And to summarise some of that, is that there are no shortcuts. I know a lot of people are looking for shortcuts, but what I've just heard is that you put the legwork in, you've built your investor base in, and you started, in my words, cranking the handle of doing the work of investing in these properties. Other people in the areas, estate agents, etc., have seen you actually buying and doing the work, and therefore trust that you are someone that is investing in the area. So we'll start bringing things to you because they think, A, you're credible, and B, this team will actually buy the property. They're not going to waste my time. And the other thing I just wanted to underscore, which you mentioned a little bit before, was around the investors you work with. When the investor said, I want to be hands off. For me, that is, yes, please, because I did a bit of, it's a bit like dating sometimes. You have a few different dates, and sometimes we think we just need the cash. So I just need some money. And I was doing it once, and I met a couple of guys. There was one guy I met quite a few times, really nice guy, really get on with him. But we sat down for a coffee, and when I told him about the next project, he started saying to me, so what kind of tiles are you going to use? And he was asking me what colour. It was almost like, and what grout. And there was something in my head that said, I don't think this guy is going to be the right investor because I don't have time, like like you, when you're going 4 hours away. And your building team said, right, we need to get this kitchen tiled, and we need to do this. I haven't got time to phone the investor and say, do you prefer the turquoise or the red? You're not going to have that time. So I think it's a really good lesson for people that want to scale, which is make sure you don't have to take the first dollar. It's about building those right relationships, because some people do want to be involved because that's how they operate, especially, they've earned their money, they want to look after it. But other people just say, look, I just want my 7% or I want my 10%, whatever that number is. So I think it's a really good learning. So essentially, Luke, you've cranked the handle. You started getting this buy-to-let portfolio going and done, you've done great guns. Then you started moving into development. So just talk to us about how that's happened for you.
So we kept building the portfolio up there. We kept going into 2022 and you're building it up, and then we've kind of gone into. We started off with your buff and fluff buy-to-lets. Moved on to taking on some more serious, horrible, horrific nightmare projects. You walk in and the smell is so bad you don't even want to enter. So I think there's an importance to that, because it made me not so scared of the risk behind buying something, and that's really bad. Like, people wouldn't go near it. Not a lot of people would go near it. But I've always been able to. I'm not really risk averse, and that's probably kind of a good thing. Casey, my partner, we kind of work off of each other, and she reels me in a bit, and we work quite well.
It sounds very familiar. Yeah.
But yeah, so we did that. We moved into service accommodation as well. We've got quite a few units of service accommodation units in Liverpool as well. Kept growing and growing and growing, and then the actual change. So I think it's because we're people that I've now been associated with around my area. So my friend's dad is a developer in the area, and I've had conversations with him before. Me and his son did a flip project up in Liverpool, which didn't go to plan because of the market dropping recently, and we couldn't sell it for how we wanted to sell it, so we kept it, and it's now service accommodation. It's being rented out monthly, and it's doing really well. And I think his dad kind of saw that, and then we've had some conversations, and then we had a conversation before, and I was trying to see if I could get into doing deals around here with him, and I think at the time I wasn't quite ready. Didn't raise enough money, and it was a bit difficult. But since then, obviously, I've had to raise quite a significant amount of funds and built up quite a lot of trust in the circles that I'm in with property. Which, funny enough, I was out having a beer with my mates for my mate's birthday, and my mates come up to me and said, one of my friends, he's got this deal, but he needs £1 million raised. And I thought, the first person I thought of was you. And I thought, okay, Jesus. Let's see what comes of it. And I didn't think anything was going to come of it, if I'm honest with you. Next week, get a phone call, come on, I want you to meet him. So we met up and we just got on really well. And he's a builder. He owns his own carpentry company, this guy. And he's a builder as well. And he started to do projects and developments sort of around this area. He's just getting started. He's done about 12 months, 18 months worth of investing. And he had this barn development. So we spoke about it and he said, look, I can probably raise some funds, but I'm going to need help raising some funds. And that's kind of where they wanted me to fill the gap. And I said, let's go and have a look at it. And then my mate's dad ended up coming as well because we asked him to come because he's done quite a lot of big developments and schemes around the area. And he came and he fell in love with it. It's a lovely project. It's a shame I can't share it. I will share it eventually when we're on site. But it's just beautiful. It's a great project. And he fell in love with it, and then before you know it, we're sitting down around the table and trying to plan how we can do this together. And then in a week, we raised the £850,000 we needed, and got it going really. So I think it was more of a case of I've always wanted to get into developments. I had to do the portfolio in Liverpool to build up my own credibility, my own knowledge, my own level of risk advertisement, things like that. And then that's kind of enabled me to then look at the bigger picture and get into what I really wanted to get into, because that has always been my dream. Ever since I was young, I've said I want to be a property developer. And now I'm hopefully living it, which is lovely.
So just for clarity then, this development then, what actually is it? I mean, is it multiple dwellings? Is it a conversion of one property? Just tell us a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so it's basically effectively all we've actually bought is a 2-bed bungalow, but it's on like a bit of farmland basically. You come off the beaten road, and it's just off of the main road, and then you pull in and it's all gated, and you've got the bungalow there. But it's basically got, so the guy who owns it, he's a builder, and I think he's played around with it for quite a while, and he's got planning permission, and he's tried to do a few things with it, and so he's built he's got the 2-bed bungalow that he obviously lives in, and he's built the sort of the structure and the roof of like a long barn. It hasn't got any foundations in there or anything like that, but it's got the blockwork walls, and the roof is kind of done. And then behind it, you've got one of those old Dutch barns. It's massive. And basically he's got planning permission to cut half of the barn down, put 3 4-bedroom houses, like nice luxury barn houses there, and then also the long barn attached to his bungalow. There's going to be another 3 4-bedroom houses. So all in all, it's 6 4-bedroom houses, and extend the bungalow into a 3-bed. So that's kind of the plan, and it's we're trying to make them luxury. It's right next to a golf course. It's like quite picturesque, so it's got to be quite high end. But yeah, it's really nice.
Lovely. And what do you see as your role within that? So you've kind of talked about how the fact that it's kind of like coalesced, your experience meeting other people, they've got confidence in you. I call it, role definitions is like, because that can be a tough one for people growing businesses as well, is actually having clearly defined roles. Because I've done it before where some people have very similar roles, and then people further down the line start to question why other people are doing that. So how's that worked out for you guys?
If I'm honest, it's actually the perfect. It couldn't have actually three entities couldn't have joined up more perfectly. If I'm being honest, it's you've got my experience with already doing property for a few years and building up a network of investors. And then also the QS inside, albeit I'm an M&E QS. I can't sit here and say I'm a build like Rick's QS. I'm an M&E for commercial buildings, but I've still got the knowledge of being able to sort of manage it from a cash flow purposes. And then you've got my mate's dad, who's got credibility in the area. He's got good relationships with lenders, and he's kind of doing the front end work on getting the deal over the line. That's kind of his role. I'm going to be raising the money, managing the funds, and being sort of the QS on the job a couple of days a week, just helping out that way. And then we've got the other partners who are builders. So effectively, everyone's invest. So we're not using an outside build team. We're using an in-house build team, so they're invested in the project as well. So it's in their best interest it goes well. And then it's kind of just worked really well. It couldn't have gone better really. And we're trying to do big enough deals that it pays for everyone as well, because it's all good that this comes around. But if you're only building a 1-bed house, like a 3-bed house, and you're earning 150, okay, 50 grand each is not bad. Like, it's not a small amount of money, but I mean, it makes sense to do the bigger deals and leverage everyone's knowledge and experience to be able to take on these types of projects.
This sounds like a big project with 6 houses and extension to bungalow and things. What sort of timelines are you looking at on this project, and how do you sort of see that process unfolding as you work through the project?
So, I mean, the beauty of it and what adds to how great this project is that there's already had structural reports done. So where the Dutch barn is, it's got already concrete foundations in. So we can actually build. It's been approved that we can build straight off of those foundations. So we don't have to actually dig down. So that's going to save a lot of time and a lot of risk as well. And then also the long barn is structurally sound as well. So albeit, we have to pour the foundations in, but the actual frame structure is already there. So it's only really the internals that we need to make sure are done properly, and obviously pour the concrete in. So that's going to shave a lot of time off and a lot of risk. But we've all sat down, and we reckon 14 months or so to be able to do the whole build. That's the plan. And there's no reason why we can't achieve that, really. Well, there shouldn't be. Touch wood.
No, it's really good, and you don't have to give us specifics, but what sort of GDV values are you looking at?
So we had the GDV down at 6,375,000, and for the first time probably in my whole investing career, the valuation come in spot on. So the valuation came in. That surveyor valued it around the same value, as well as our purchase price on the land and bungalow as well. So it's kind of we felt comfortable. We were what's the word? Confident. But it's nice to know that an outside source has also reassured that as well.
Yeah, and I think my experience of this as well is that the GDV, the confidence around GDV and delivering, is sort of equally proportional to the people that you're working with. And I can sort of do the other side of this because I've looked at other projects. So my projects are typically still in the HMO environment. We've built up close to 100 rooms and that sort of stuff. But when I've looked at bigger developments, and again, I'll be completely, and this isn't to be detrimental to anyone I work with currently, but when I've looked at, say, multi 7 figures, I thought, I'm not sure I've got the team for that. And that's the only thing that stopped me, because I think what's really good about your story, Luke, is that you've shown, in inverted commas, a natural progression from building up that confidence to have to be able to talk and just say, yeah, this is a multi-million pounds development and this is how it's going to work. Because a lot of people get afraid by that. But essentially, it's the same thing on a different scale. Okay, we've just talked about the fact that groundworks, and we've looked at stuff like that. So okay, if you've got to do piling and stuff like that, all of a sudden this is out of. It's not a buff and a fluff, as we say. It's a bit different. But you've got the people, the experts, to talk about, and I think that is a great, great bit of experience. So let's, as we walk into sort of wrapping up the podcast, in terms of what you've learned so far. If you had to pluck out one of your biggest learnings from going from a 3-bed buy to let up to a multi-million pound development, what do you think are the biggest things people need to think about if they want to grow in that direction?
I think it's definitely your appetite to risk, I think, and you've got to understand what you want to do, because things can go wrong and you can lose your shirt. We've taken on some, as I said before, some horrific projects in Liverpool, and that kind of gives us the confidence to know that we can do some really bad deals. Not bad deals as in scary deals, really. But I think more importantly than anything is knowing what skills you have, not trying to force yourself into situations that you can't actually deliver on. But teaming up with people, leveraging. I think leverage. Probably, if I had to put it in one word, it's leveraging. And I think that's probably the key. leveraging other people's money if you need it, leveraging other people's skills, and then bringing your own skills to the table as well, and knowing what you can deliver. I think that's probably the biggest key, because I'll be honest, I probably wouldn't have the confidence to do this deal if I wasn't partnered up with the people I'm doing it with. You know,
exactly.
The builders are fantastic. They've got a proven track record. You know, my friend's dad, who's the developer, he's got a proven track record. I've seen his developments. I've been in them. So as a team, you know, I've filled a gap. We've been able to raise the money and bring money to the table, and everyone's done their part. And I think that's probably the key. It's leverage, definitely.
Fantastic, and I think that is a really good summary, Luke, for yeah, and it certainly highlights your journey, because I think that is exactly what it is. You know, from the very first property, you leveraged other people, you know, both in terms of and I think obviously whenever we talk about leverage, we immediately think of loan to values or financial elements, but actually leverage is people. You know, it's you know, people, resource, whatever that is as well. So I think that's really great, and I think it's a fantastic story, Luke, so far. And yeah, it'd be very interesting to get you back in at least around 14 months, I think, to see things, see how things are going.
Don't see me back here, you know it's gone bad.
Yeah, but Luke, yeah, just want to say thank you again, and yeah, for anyone listening, if you've got any value from Luke's story, feel free to reach out. We're at the Biz of Property on Twitter. You can email us as well. All of that information's on the show notes. And yeah, as Luke's talked about, you know, leverage, and don't force yourself into situations you don't necessarily want to do. If you don't feel like you've got the risk appetite to do multi-million-pound development, then don't go that route. There are many different routes to go, and it's something Simon and I will be talking about on a podcast coming to you in the very near future. So other than that, all it leaves me to do is to say thank you once again, Luke, and for everyone else, we'll see you on the next episode.